Some may know this is our classical Mongolian class. In this video, we will keep talking about the difference between Inner Mongolia and Outer Mongolia in terms of the Mongolian language. So since our last video, we received a question from Cassie. So the question actually is two questions. One is, let me read it. Is it only pronunciation difference, or are there word definition differences that would become apparent in conversation? So actually this is two questions, all right? Two questions. So let me briefly talk about the word pronunciation or kind of dialect. In Mongolian family, there are a lot of variety of different dialects. For example, we have Buryat dialect, Kalmykia dialect. These two are in Russian Federation. And then in central part, it's Outer Mongolia, or called Mongolia. Also have the Halakh dialect, Darkhat dialect, Sartol dialect, and some more dialects, all right? But in Mongolia, the Halakh dialect is considered as the standard Mongolian. And then in Southern Mongolia, or Inner Mongolia, or within the boundary of China, People's Republic of China, we have for example, in Inner Mongolia, we have Chakhar dialect, which is considered as the standard dialect in standard Mongolian in Inner Mongolia. Also have the Barak dialect, Kharchin dialect, Artis dialect, Ujimchin dialect, or so Alksha dialect. And then in Xinjiang also have the Oirat dialect. So even within Inner Mongolia, the dialect is quite different. So when people speaking, it sounds quite different. But the word itself is the same. In most of the time, it's the same. Of course, have a variety. So what's the difference between the Inner Mongolian dialect and Outer Mongolian dialect? Actually, this is, let's say, if we compare the Chakhar dialect in Inner Mongolia and the Halakh dialect in Outer Mongolia, these two are quite similar. For example, compared to Kharchin dialect or Kharchin dialect, yeah? So this is the first answer of the first question. And the second one is about is there a word definition differences? Yes. Again, this is yes. Now I only limit to the Outer Mongolia and Inner Mongolia. So there are some word differences, probably it's historically have the long history, but in my understanding, most of them are the difference appeared relatively recently, or let's say within 100 years. So Outer Mongolia or Mongolia is heavily influenced by the Russian language, and then Inner Mongolia is heavily influenced by the Chinese language. Yeah. So in everyday language, so lots of vocabulary in Inner Mongolia are from Chinese, and then in Outer Mongolia, there are lots of vocabularies are from Russia. And then in recent years, I noticed we can see there are more and more English vocabulary being used in Outer Mongolia. For example, like supermarket, yeah. In Mongolia, it's supermarket, or gender. These are used as it is, or like export. Only a week ago, I heard the foreign minister of Mongolia said export. Export, it sounds like Mongolian. Of course, they use this as a Mongolian, but it's the new word, all right? Export plus taho, export. The meaning is export, all right? But if you say export to Inner Mongolian people, I think 99% of the people don't understand what is exporter, because this is a combination of English and the Mongolian. On the other hand, for example, in Inner Mongolia, people also use some Chinese word in their daily life. For example, phone call in Mongolian, of course, it's called otostugh or otosavch. But in Inner Mongolia, quite often people will say dianhua jach or dianhua av. Dianhua is the Chinese word, dianhua, all right? So such as, so the word, the definition differences also have these kind of, because of the long historical, geographical, or more currently kind of Mongolia has been globalized, more connected to the Western or let's say English-speaking world. There are lots of new words appeared in both Mongolia and Inner Mongolia. Overall, but at the end, to sum up, still Inner Mongolian and the Outer Mongolians will mutually understand each other. Others, let's say, in a conversation, I think at least like above 95% or 98% is, of course, it depends on the people like me constantly moving on this both side of the border. So I would say mostly like 99.9% I understand what they're talking about. But if you bring one Mongolian herders from rural area and then others from rural Inner Mongolia, let them talk together. It really depends on the region, okay? They may understand each other like 97% or 95%. Of course, if you talk too much like supermarket, exporter, or dianhua chachach, these types of words, they will hardly understand each other. So this is our current situation between Inner Mongolian language and the Mongolian language in Mongolia. Yes, thank you, Cassie, for your question. So any other question, please write on the comment. Okay, birthday.